At the 30th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union, President Muhammadu Buhari was named the 2018 Anti-Corruption Champion. What does this mean for the nation, especially in the face of criticisms over the approach to the fight against corruption? On this week's edition of the program, we take a look at the emergence of President Buhari as the AU Anti-Corruption Champion. Hello there, welcome to Dateline Abuja. I'm Gloria Umezuki. Criticisms have greeted the emergence of President Buhari as the African Union Anti-Corruption Champion, with opposition raising several unresolved corruption issues. A lecturer from the Bayes University, Abuja, talks about the significance of his emergence. But first, what are the stories that made the headlines within the week in the nation's capital? A parade of honor was conducted on Monday at the presidential wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, in honor of the former Vice President, late Chief Dr. Alex Ekweme. Vice President Professor Yemi Oshibajo led other political leaders to the ceremony. Dr. Ekweme died on November 20, 2017, in a London clinic in the United Kingdom.
We are reminded of his selfless service to nation, to our region, to Africa, and indeed the world. We're reminded of his commitment to the timeless ideals of integrity, of loyalty, and of kindness to all. We thank the Almighty God for giving us 85 glorious years of Dr. Alex Ekweme. And I pray that in death, and as we him, that this will not only encourage us, but also cement the relationship between all of the peoples and nationalities of this country, so that we become and remain one.
A federal high court in Abuja has struck out a suit filed by former First Lady Dame Patience Jonathan against the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The presiding judge, Justice John Soho, who struck out the fundamental rights enforcement suit filed by Mrs. Jonathan, held that, contrary to her claim of indiscriminate harassment and freezing of her accounts without invitation, the steps taken by the EFCC were upon reasonable suspicion. The court also noted that the former First Lady did not tender any verifiable evidence to show her rights to dignity were violated. The Nigeria Police Force have paraded a gang of 5 alleged to be kidnapping suspects and among those wreaking havoc on innocent citizens along the Jere axis of Kaduna-Abuja Expressway. Addressing journalists, the Force Public Relations Officer, Mr. Jimo Moshood, says the suspects were arrested at the point of collecting ransom from the father of their victim, an 11-year-old girl. Few days after a proposed political movement by former President Olusegun Obasanjo, new coalition movement was launched in the nation's capital. The former president, in a lengthy and critical public statement, suggested the formation of the movement. Although he was not present at the launch, 2 former People's Democratic Party governors were in attendance.
As stated earlier, this movement exists to promote the welfare of all citizens of a united Nigeria, guided by justice and fairness. This movement, therefore, has it as its cardinal objective the promotion of equity and equality of opportunity for all our compatriots in order to have a truly just and united Nigeria.
The name coalition connotes bringing all of them together. And we need to bring ourselves together if we're going to make this work. More importantly, We have the dire consequences of now in our nation. Where we are today, if you project another 3-4 years, the disaster will be worse. It's not going to get better.
The Senate has summoned the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Ibrahim Idris, to explain the steps taken to prevent further killings in Benue State. Lawmakers in the upper chamber of the National Assembly took the decision after Senate President Mr. Bukola Saraki read a letter from President Muhammadu Buhari explaining the steps taken after the January killings in the state. The Senate Committees on Police and National Intelligence were mandated to invite the IG and report back next week, Tuesday.
I think the whole integrity of the institution on issues as important as this must be taken seriously. I think the Senate Committee on Police and Intelligence should summon the IG to come before it by tomorrow to be able to make an explanation to also where we are on these 2 weeks ultimatum. And those two committees should report to us by Tuesday the exact situation or where we are. I think we must make it very clear to the security agencies, those kind of ultimatums cannot be taken lightly. If people think that we're just going to sweep this thing under the carpet, the answer is definitely no. We're not going to stop until people are made accounted. And even as the president said in his letter, he has told the IG to ensure speedy prosecution of those concerned. And we're not saying that. And I hope the IG knows that he needs to take this seriously, because definitely this is a matter that the whole country, something needs to be done, and we'll make sure that that's happening.
The Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, has denied reports that the federal government is still subsidizing petroleum products, admitting that the Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation is importing refined products at a loss. Addressing State House correspondents after the weekly Federal Executive Council meeting, Mrs. Adeosun said NNPC's intervention to ensure product availability is costing the nation 26 naira per litre of petrol sold at retail outlets.
Technically today there's no subsidy, but there is a under recovery. And why that is because NNPC are currently doing all the importing. So they're importing at a higher price than they're selling, which means they're losing money, which means effectively that loss is being borne by everybody, and it's reflected in the Federation account. So there's no subsidy payment in the way the old subsidy scheme used to work, where they were paying oil marketers, but there is an under recovery, a loss on the importation of PMI being borne by an NPC, and therefore indirectly being borne by every one of us.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, held a closed-door meeting with some state governors to resolve the crisis between farmers and herdsmen. The chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, Governor Abdulaziz Yari of Zamfara State, spoke to State House correspondents after the meeting, explaining that a committee of governors was set up to employ technocrats, traditional and religious leaders to interface with those affected to resolve the crisis.
In our discussion today, we have set a committee headed by Governor of Ebonyi State, Plateau and Adamawa, and we're bringing some other technocrats that will visit the hotspot states, Benue, Taraba, Zamfara and Adamawa, where there are those crises, so that they can interface with the Métis Allah and other group and see how we can be able to put this matter to a minimum level. While we cannot say we can put it to rest finally, because the trouble of it is a kind of, some of them make it to be a money-making venture. Some of them talk it to it's a criminal act. There are some that want to form criminality, they will hide under this and then form their criminality. So as government, we have to take all the measures.
Members of the Petroleum Tanker Drivers Association have threatened to go on strike if the Jaba-Mokwa road is not fixed. Already, fuel queues are emerging after members of the union blocked the Suleja depot. At a meeting with the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, the union said the present situation of the road has led to economic losses. However, the minister urged them to shelve their action, promising that something is being done about the roads.
The tanker driver may likely forced to abandon that road. We know what is happening. We want you to do more. We want you to put toll gate. We want to pay. We want good quality services for ourselves. This is our country. We don't have another one we can call our own.
Whenever there is a problem, strike must be the last resort. It must not be the first resort. And I want to thank you thus far. And I think you have heard from the director, because we're a team, so it's not just what I say, that the Tatabu Road failed because of age and also because of ecological factor. Rain fell and destroyed the bridge. We've seen that in Texas. We've seen it in California. They didn't go on strike. It's an ecological problem. That's nature. The response is, did we respond? We are responding. We have a contractor back there. The road is blocked. It is within that road that the contractor has to move his equipment. He has created a temporary route while he is reconstructing the bridge. Before the end of this year, that bridge will be complete. You will have your road back.